You can't fix stupid. Welcome into Occupy Democrats on another Trainwreck Trump Taco Tuesday. And in this breaking story, that will be the theme, because you just can't fix stupid. And whether it's Donald Trump being stupid or one of his sycophants he's placed in an entirely too high a position for their qualifications, it doesn't change the fact you can't fix stupid. And in this breaking story, what Kash Patel of the FBI just did will blow your mind. And I'm going to show that to you in a few seconds. But let's remember, this is the guy that we had this conversation about when it came to our Intelligence Committee before his confirmation. This.
In a statement, you said that Wray's resignation risks normalizing any president's desire to fire FBI directors at will. They're supposed to have 10-year terms. Wouldn't Trump have the right, though, to fire the FBI director once he's in office?
Of course, he has the right to do it. The question is, why is he doing it? He's doing it because Chris Wray was independent and competent and thoughtful, and that is not what Donald Trump is looking for, especially when you consider that his nomination, Kash Patel, is an individual who's distinguished mainly by his absolutely 120% slavish loyalty to Donald Trump. So it's pretty clear what he's trying to do here, which is to get his guy in to our domestic federal police force.
That's right, a pure slave to Donald Trump. But there's more.
One thing you must take seriously, which is that the FBI, like any other organization, is made up of senior people. They could retire, and they may very well do that. So the brain drain you could see from an institution, because somebody who is obviously unqualified and obviously inconsistent with the Bureau's values is going to impose a huge brain drain on the FBI. And this is true at other organizations where Trump has nominated unqualified people.
And let's not forget that we're talking about being America's head police force. That's what the FBI is. And a lot of what they cover are things that we don't necessarily need to know about. We just need to know there's consistency, continuity, and that they know how to do their job. But one of our top officials felt this way before he got into this dang position. This.
We just sent a letter over to the Senate Judiciary Committee, Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Durbin, asking them and the other committee members to vote against Mr. Patel for FBI Director. In my view, he is probably the most unqualified candidate for the FBI directorship that I've ever seen.
And when it's all said and done, let's understand in this breaking story, Kash Patel has a State Department, he has ambassadors, he has all kind of people at his beck and call to get information from, and yet this idiot still can manage at a country like New Zealand to make this level of a gaffe in the face of New Zealand. Here is the story.
FBI boss Kash Patel gifted New Zealand officials 3D printed guns illegal to possess under local laws. On a visit to New Zealand, FBI Director Kash Patel gave the country's police and spy bosses gifts of inoperable pistols that were illegal to possess under local gun laws and had to be destroyed. New Zealand law enforcement agencies told the Associated Press. The plastic 3D printed replica pistols formed part of display stands Patel presented to at least 3 senior New Zealand security officials in July. Patel, the most senior Trump administration official to visit the country so far, was in Wellington to open the FBI's first standalone office in New Zealand. Pistols are tightly restricted weapons under New Zealand law, and possessing one requires an additional permit beyond a regular gun license. Law enforcement agencies didn't specify whether the officials who met with Patel held such permits, but they couldn't have legally kept the gifts if they didn't. It wasn't clear what permissions Patel had sought to bring the weapons into the country. The pistols were surrendered and destroyed. Inoperable weapons are treated as though they're operable in New Zealand if modifications could make them workable again. The pistols were judged by gun regulators to be potentially operable and were destroyed, New Zealand's Police Commissioner Richard Chambers told AP in a statement Tuesday. 3 of New Zealand's most powerful law enforcement figures said they received the gifts at meetings July 31st. Chambers was one recipient, and the other 2 were Andrew Hampton, Director General of the country's Human Intelligence Agency, NZSIS, and Andrew Clark, Director General of the Technical Intelligence Agency, GCSB, according to a joint statement from their departments. A spokesperson for the spy agencies described the gift as a challenge coin display stand that included the 3D-printed inoperable weapon as part of the design. The officials sought advice on the gifts the next day from the regulator that enforces New Zealand's gun laws, Chambers said. When the weapons were examined, it was discovered they were potentially operable. To ensure compliance with firearms laws, I instructed police to retain and destroy them, Chambers said. James Davidson, a former FBI agent who is now president of the FBI Integrity Project, a nonprofit that seeks to safeguard the Bureau from undue partisan influence, has criticized Patel's appointment. But Davidson said the gift of the replica pistols appeared a genuine gesture from Patel, and their destruction was, quite frankly, an overreaction by the NZSIS, which could have simply rendered the replica inoperable, he said. New Zealand has strong gun controls. 3D printed weapons are treated the same as other guns in New Zealand. The country bolstered its gun restrictions following a 2019 white supremacist attack on 2 mosques in the city of Christchurch, when 51 Muslim worshippers were shot dead by an Australian man who had amassed a cache of semi-automatic weapons legally. New Zealand doesn't have a passionate culture of gun ownership, and the weapons have been viewed more dimly since the mass shooting. Gun ownership is enshrined in New Zealand law as a privilege, not a right. The country isn't short on guns. They're common in rural areas for pest control. But violent gun crime is rare, and many urban residents might never have even seen a firearm in person. It's uncommon even to see police officers carrying weapons. Frontline officers aren't usually armed on patrol and leave their weapons locked in their vehicles. Patel caused discomfort with China remarks. News of Patel's visit caused ripples in New Zealand at the time because the opening of the new FBI field office in Wellington wasn't divulged to news outlets or the public until it had already happened. An FBI statement in July said the move aligned New Zealand with FBI missions in other Five Eyes intelligence-sharing nations, which also include the United States, Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom. The office would provide a local mission for FBI staff who have operated with oversight from Canberra, Australia, since 2017, the statement said. Public records disclosed to local news outlets this month revealed that Patel met with and dined with more than a dozen senior public servants and elected officials, including cabinet ministers, during his visit. It wasn't immediately clear Tuesday how many officials received the pistols as gifts. Patel had already provoked mild diplomatic discomfort in Wellington by suggesting in remarks supplied to reporters that the new FBI office aimed to counter China's influence in the South Pacific Ocean, where New Zealand is located. The comments prompted polite dismissal from officials in Wellington, who said the bolstered FBI presence was primarily to collaborate on child exploitation and drug smuggling crimes. Beijing decried Patel's remarks.
And we have to understand, this is the guy who technically is in charge of every single mass shooting in this country. What we just saw happen to Charlie Kirk. What just happened in D.C. towards ICE. What just happened with the clown who drove a truck into a Mormon church. These are domestic violent crimes. That's what the FBI does. And a guy who thinks he's so emboldened by Trump, so arrogant, so full of hubris, that he can just ignore the way New Zealand functions, even if it was right on the edge of being okay, why push the edge? And then also irritate China. It takes a full-blown moron to do that, but that's what Donald Trump's like. He said it on the campaign trail. I love the uneducated. Yeah, we just shouldn't have them as the head of the FBI. Oh, and by the way, also the Secretary of Defense/War, Pete Hegseth. Yeah, those are 2 uneducated folk we don't need heading up these agencies in America. You guys, stay frosty.